That way we can post on YouTube, so if anybody wants to catch up, they can, if that works for you guys.
Sounds great.
Sure. So I will start off with a very, very brief presentation of my own. So for anybody who's going to be watching this video, my name is Em Myler. I'm the Neighborhood Development Liaison. I'll talk to the camera. And so I will make sure that my contact information is present with the video. So if you're watching this and you have questions, you can reach out to me and make sure that you get them answered. The rest of this will kind of be over the purpose of neighborhood meetings. Our neighborhood meetings are a space where the public can come and ask questions about development proposed near them, as well as potentially if they'd like to share a comment tonight. So we are open to answering questions, receiving comments from now until this project ends up in a decision. We will have a short presentation from the planner talking about the zoning and the applicable sub-area plans and that kind of stuff that apply to this project. And then we'll hear from the applicant team what their actual proposal is. And then I'll give you a few next steps so that you know where this project is headed in the future and you can take action if you'd like to get involved more. So let me share my screen. So just this model is our development review process, which is the process that this project is currently in visuals. And so somebody at the beginning of the process comes up with an idea of how to use a piece of land. And they'll usually reach out to us and ask us some questions about what the process is going to look like, whether they're allowed to do that based on our zoning laws and things like that. And then we'll have them, if they qualify, sign up for a neighborhood meeting. Once the neighborhood meeting is complete, they have to wait at least 10 days, but usually is longer before they submit an application for development review. And that's where Kai, the planner, and a bunch of other city staff will take a look at the project and make sure it applies to all of our laws and rules around development. Once the project has gone through review, and it takes a certain amount of time depending on how complex the project is, we will send it to a decision maker. In this case, it would be the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is a board of volunteer residents who will analyze the project in compliance with our land use code. After it gets a decision and would be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, it goes through a couple more checks and then heads into its building review where it gets its permits. So I know I mentioned a few people who are involved. The first is the applicant team. These are all the different real estate and architecture and engineering professionals, et cetera, who create the project and come up with the idea and the plans for it. We also have city planning staff. They coordinate the review and basically just look at whether the project adheres to our land use code. We have a lot of other city staff involved. We may have traffic staff or engineering staff or historic preservation staff, depending on the project. And so everybody will be looking at this proposal to make sure that it follows all of their guidelines. We have myself, the neighborhood development liaison. I serve as a link between the neighbors and everything that's happening. We have the decision maker, who I mentioned is the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then we have the public, which is you. Just a quick note on how we use public comment. Like I mentioned, at this point forward, public comment is open for this project, so you're welcome to send me anything at any time. I'll make sure that my email address is included in this video. And we take those comments and we make sure that they are presented to the final decision maker, who will be answering a simple question, basically. Does this project follow the land use code or does it not? So sometimes comments may be helpful for them, and sometimes they may apply to different parts of our codes and stuff like that. So I just want to keep in mind that they're answering this decision, and there may be other things that are outside of this project. I'll skip that and then pass it over to Kai.
Yeah, and do you guys have a presentation that you'll? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to go light on my presentation and just mainly let you guys focus on what your proposal is.
Okay.
So I'll just start out here. This is an overview slide showing the zone districts of the site and the site outline. So this is a proposal for a multifamily development within a greater, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question. We're actually looking at lot 4 though, whereas that is lot 1.
Oh, lot 4. Okay.
Pretty much the same difference. Though,
Yeah.
so.
So then all of these slides beyond like 2 from now will not apply. So if you go back, lot 4.
Slide you want?
No, if you go back, lot 4 is this, I don't know if you can highlight this with your hand. So just north of this outline. So you have sort of that the industrially zoned area to the east and the north, but just a little bit to the west of that, where that old frontage road comes up to the, to the north, that is lot 4. And for this development, we've seen a conceptual in the past. It has been for a mixed use development of ground floor retail. Yeah, kind of that shape.
One of the slides in the
Yeah.
I'll show it really
Yeah, the applicant's slides will show this more clearly. And then I'll sort of set the framework of community planning and how it kind of influences a little bit of the design and decisions that we're sort of going to try to be guiding this development within the guardrails of. So that's generally the highlighted area of where this proposal is. It would be mixed use, ground floor retail, upper story, multifamily, single building, parking field to the west and north of the building. And then if you go to the next slide, I'll give you a little bit of background. So a ton of guiding or guidance for this particular site. In the early 2000s, one of the big things that the city undertook was a multi-jurisdictional corridor plan. And that spanned from all the way down in Berthoud to Timnath, Loveland, City of Fort Collins, Wellington was even included in that. And basically the idea around that corridor plan was to coordinate what development looked like along the northern Colorado I-25 corridor. So some of the key points that came out of the plan was creating concentrated centers of developments around interchanges, and in between interchanges, keeping it like relatively open to sort of preserve view sheds from the interstate to the mountains, to not have this cluttered corridor of just continuous warehousing that you see as you get closer to Denver, to have a little bit more intentionality behind around the land uses for the interchanges and in between. Some other things that it sort of directed was creating high quality design for the corridor. So it meant having large, generous landscape buffers for the interchange, meant having certain styles of roofs, certain materiality to buildings within the corridor, certain landscape standards, and so on and so forth. So from that corridor plan, we rolled that into the I-25 sub-area plan, which took a lot of the vision from the corridor plan and encapsulated it. And it was sort of the framework for the standards that we adopted, that City Council adopted, that apply specifically to this development project. So this development project's in what's called an activity center. That's the third bullet point there. And essentially the activity center, those are concentrated areas around Mulberry and Prospect for a mix of uses and to be a more urban kind of center around these interchanges. So capitalizing on CDOT's investments and interchange improvements, and then a little bit of at the time, what was envisioned, some regional transportation options. So right now, I think it most likely looks like the bus line or the bus thing. But in the past, there was some vision to be like the commuter rail, to be going through some of these activity centers, and to have like these urban centers arranged around these either rail stations or bus, like park and ride bus stations for development. Clearly, I think they've updated that vision for the rail. I think that rail line is going to go a little bit further west from their alternatives analysis, but you'll still have the bus out here. Regional retail uses, office, personal business service, creative forms of housing. Other things that came out of the sub-area plan was sort of a restriction of single unit occupancy housing, duplex housing within I think, a quarter mile of the interstate. So the multifamily development or the mixed use development that's being proposed as part of this project certainly aligns with a lot of the vision of the activity center and the guidance from these previous plans. So next slide. Here's just an idea of what came out of the corridor plan, showing a little bit of your activity centers, how you would preserve these bubble diagrams of green, sort of open land, agricultural land, and how residential would be set back from the interchange or the freeway itself by a considerable distance. The below image here is from the I-25 sub-area plan. That just shows in red the two activity centers that are designated as part of the plan, and sort of relates a little bit to that upper graphic, which came from the corridor plan. That's it here. Yeah, so again, this is pretty much it for me. Missed the mark on this being lot 4. We can focus here for a second, and then you can sort of move on to the applicant presentation. But historically, this is sort of dry land or agricultural land. In the past, it's gone through several iterations of overall development plans and designs over the years. I think starting in the early mid-90s, it was envisioned to be sort of a business park, some where the school is now. Before they acquired that site, it was envisioned to be sort of residential. A lot of site constraints on the site. So I-25 to the west, there's a ditch. So the Greeley water line, Timnath Reservoir Inlet Canal, Lake Canal. What else do we have?
Larimer County, VDOT, Town of Timnath,
Yeah,
PSD.
quite a few large utilities and entities running through diagonally through the site, making a fairly complex site for the purposes of development. Historically, in the past, the reason I show Box Elder Creek up here is that the city has invested substantial amounts of money into upstream improvements to the Box Elder Creek floodplain. And I think this is one of the properties that benefited from removing, doing the upstream improvements and ultimately removed some of this property from the floodplain to allow for development. And I think that will be it for me. If you want to hand it over to you guys.
Okay. So my name is Andy Reese. I'm with Kimley Horn. I have the rest of our design team that's here with us. That includes Daniel Wild of Neo Studio, as well as Vinny, bless you.
Thank you.
Vinny English with the ownership group, and Bryce Willoughby is also with Kimley Horn. This is looking here at this first slide is an elevation of the proposed building on lot 4. You want to go ahead and move on to the next one. We already touched a little bit on this, or Em did at the start of this, so I won't go too much into this other than to say right now we're kind of anticipating an initial submittal towards the end of this month, hopefully, or into early June. Targeting a public hearing if things go well in November or maybe even December, and hopefully getting approval and maybe construction into next summer. As we go on to the next slide, this shows the Rudolph Farms subdivision. Lot 4 is highlighted in green down there. This also lays out the other, the other 12 lots that are in the site. The Rudolph Farms subdivision was approved and recorded a couple of months ago. In that package was all of the overall infrastructure, including the roadways and the supporting water and sewer infrastructure, along with the supporting stormwater infrastructure for all of the parcels that are here. It also included improvements to Prospect Road, as well as some slight changes to the PSD site. Throughout this site, you could see it on Kai's slide as far as the different zoning that's on the parcel. Generally speaking, lots 1 through 6 are commercial zoning, with the remainders being industrial zoning. Lot 13 is a single family estate lot zoning. As we go into the next space, this is the approved overall development plan. This is kind of the guiding document that shows how the site will be laid out and where access is intended to be. You can see on here, parcel PA2 is the equivalent of our lot 4. And it's zoned general commercial, and then the gray hatching shows that it's within that activity center. We go on to the next slide, we're gonna see kind of the community trails that are planned as a part of the larger development. These are shown in blue and will provide some pretty great connectivity up to the Box Elder Creek. There's efforts to create a trail that will run along that all the way to the north, I believe for quite a ways.
Yeah.
Maybe up into Wellington even,
Wyoming. I
up
think.
all the way to Wyoming.
Yeah.
That'll be a long bike ride.
Yeah.
As well as to the south and kind of providing that connectivity. We're also seeing a trail that runs along the north side of the ditches and the Greeley water line that will provide additional connectivity to the school as well as to Timnath and beyond to the east. This is a blow up of the site plan that we're currently proposing. It's a pretty straightforward site. The Carriage Parkway and Prospect Ridge Drive roadways are again approved with the Rudolph Farm subdivision. So here, what we're proposing are 2 drive connections into a parking area and then a single building. The building's fronted towards the corner of the intersection so that it kind of feels more present and creates more of that pedestrian scale. In the left, just real quick there, you're on it too. In the left there, what we've shown is kind of the current breakout of what's being planned for the site. I think it's important to note at this point, we are just at conceptual, and so things are going to change. It's just a question of what's going to change. But in general, we're looking at a building that has approximately 45 units, about 17,000 square feet of, I'm sorry, 14,000 square feet of retail, and give or take 113 parking spaces. Now, if we want to click along here, these are just some images to kind of help illustrate what we're trying to go for. This is looking from the southeast to the northwest. This is kind of from the intersection of Carriage Parkway and Prospect Ridge. You'll see kind of on the corner, there's a stronger architectural element that Daniel can speak to here in a minute. In fact, Daniel, would you like to just kind of go over the architecture in general?
Sure. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, again, I'm Daniel Wild with Neo Studio Architects. We're really happy to present this building to you today. So thank you all for your time this evening. Really, we're trying to achieve a lot with this building. One of the things we're doing is transitioning from the large scale industrial zoning that's closer to I-25 and scaling that down through the building form and materials as we kind of transition a little to the east and get more into the residential zoning that Kai was mentioning. So in this image here, what we're doing is we're breaking the build, it's kind of a long building. And we are breaking that in the site plan. You can see that we do have a large central plaza, and I think you can kind of see that there. So we're breaking down the massing by providing that central plaza and making the building kind of look like 2 buildings. And the other thing that we're doing is really responding to the I-25 sub-area design standards and providing, hipped roofs and also emphasizing the pedestrian experience with masonry materials that are really focused at the base of the building. And along with that, we are transitioning between, the primary element that we're looking at on the corner is a brick base. And then as we're going to the left of the image, the next material that tan is a masonry tile, a larger scale tile. And then we kind of have different lap siding infills in between. And then, we're not sure what the tenants or the retail uses will be currently, but we will be providing awnings at grade to kind of signify entrances. And we also do provide the large storefront there to kind of highlight the retail use. And again, this is a mixed use building. So we do have approximately 14,700 square feet of retail at grade, and then approximately 45 units above that. Again, speaking to that I-25 plan of providing kind of a mixture of mixed use, retail opportunities and housing. That's all I have for now, but there are additional images if you'd like to go around the building, and we also have 2D elevations as well that we could provide if you'd like. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. So yes, as we kind of go on to the next slide, this changes to a view from the southwest looking northeast. This is transitioning more towards the lot 1 multifamily that's currently planned. As we go on to the next one, this flips around to the north side and the parking lot. Again, this building is really intended to be using the four-sided architecture and not really have a front and back per se. We would see people accessing it from both sides as they kind of move through this. And then swinging around, this is back from the northeast looking southwest. Again, you're seeing the balconies to kind of help break up some of that massing and the storefront all along the ground level there.
And in addition, we're providing the landscape buffers around the building as well. So this is more a conceptual representation of what some of the buffers will look like.
All right. So that kind of wraps up what we had here. At the end of the day, really the reason we're here is to listen to people and hear any questions that you may have. I know that the vast majority of this is going to be recorded, but if people do watch this and have additional questions, we're happy to respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any questions?
So I'm sorry, I'm late.
No, you're
I'm going from the east into town, takes longer than to expect.
Yeah.
So the question I have, we live in the Kitchell Estates. And what I'm having a hard time with is this map and this map. So this is what we got last time at the last review. And I'm having a hard time overlaying this onto where this is on
I'm
here.
having a hard time seeing it.
Yeah.
And Andy, if there's any Bluebeam overlaying you want me to do, just let me know.
Yeah, so these are the two dishes, right?
Thanks, Daniel.
Now.
Okay.
Don't think we'll need it, but just in case, thank you.
And that is actually in this tract.
The
Here.
applicant's signature.
Oh,
Subdivision.
Okay,
So
then,
then this PA1,
Yeah.
where
that's
the
what I was
apartments
thinking.
are,
okay,
and where it says site here is this, that's written as grocery store.
this.
Yep.
Okay, and you're calling that for, and in here,
There you go.
that was supposed to be like assisted living, but this doesn't line up with this now, is that correct?
Yeah, so what is this?
This was
So
from
is
the last
traffic study.
review.
Got
Yeah.
it. So this is the traffic study for those who aren't seeing the document. This is
Okay.
the traffic study that was done as part of the original Rudolph Farm. That was started 3 years ago, and
Right.
they had to make some assumptions on what kind of trips there were gonna be.
Right,
And so, yes, at the time of this, they had put down that there might be a grocery store there. And
Right,
then
so-
in her stuff, it appears that she had thought it might be assisted living.
right. So that this came out in the package though at the last review meeting. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? The review for the self-storage.
Ah.
This was at the tail end of the self-storage.
Got it.
So that's why I'm confused, okay?
Okay,
So that's recent, right? That's just,
yeah, and that parcel is right here.
right, so, okay, so this is self-storage and then you guys will be here.
Correct.
Okay, and that then answers my question because I wasn't sure if you're gonna be a 3 or 4 story,
Hmm.
but then you align with the stadium,
More
right?
so,
Because
yeah.
the stadium's a 4-story.
Yep.
Roughly, right?
Yeah, certainly the lights and such up there.
Yes. Yes.
I don't have to tell you.
Yes.
When we get done with this, I'd love to hear. how that's going.
And she's not going bad. It's.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of thought put into that.
Yeah.
did
Anything
you have-
else?
So
we can help
thank
you
you.
with?
That's very clarifying.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything else I can answer for you?
No, so this is maybe off the subject a little bit, but how soon will that infrastructure of Carriage Parkway be in? And the reason I ask is from the north, there is not a good way for the kids to get to school.
Yeah,
And so it's anybody's guess. They come down our property line, the developers have fabric there.
Mhm.
They come about every week and re-put the fabric up. Okay, maybe every 2 weeks, because that's the path for the kids to get to school.
Yeah.
And I would hope that once Carriage Parkway goes in, that will be diverted and they'll be on, that's just a safer way to get to school.
yeah.
It just is.
Yeah, so as you're obviously aware, there's construction happening now as we speak. They are installing the sanitary sewer lines. They've got box culverts into those ditches, and so they're making really good progress. My understanding is water lines mid to late summer will start going in, and then you'll start to see the Carriage Parkway roadways going in the fall.
Okay,
As far as when they get paved, that's gonna depend a little bit on the weather, when the batch plants close and those sorts of things. But it could be paved this year. My guess feels like it's probably next spring that.
but
it's
will
actually-
people have access to it paved or unpaved?
They will, well, paved, yes, unpaved, no.
Okay,
We do not want kids walking through construction site.
right, and,
But once that
Yes.
paving is in there, there's also an oversized sidewalk that'll go along Carriage Parkway and it ties in, you can see that little stub that ties into the.
right, to the school,
And the
yes,
expectation is that students from the north would walk
Come that
in,
way.
ride their bikes, et cetera, down. there.
okay. Okay,
So we should,
we're all waiting.
we should have them on your yards.
Well, I feel bad for the kids because they come down and they go over the fence.
Yeah.
And they were going over the fence on our property and we sort of trained them that from a liability standpoint, they just can't go over the fence on our side. They need to go over on the school side. And so they've been very good about staying on the school's property but it's just not a good fix. It's going over the fence is just not a good solution.
Help is coming, and I'm sure you attended some of the neighborhood meetings with the school. There was a lot of thought that went into the traffic circulation and the layout of that, and it all anticipated this connection to Carriage Parkway.
Yeah.
So much so that, some of the buses and things like that are
Right.
expected to come in one side, whereas the parents and such are another. So you should start to see relief from that once this comes through.
Okay,
Hopefully.
I know, good, we're ready.
Yeah.
I know, there's probably nobody here from the north, and I'm guessing the longer Carriage Parkway doesn't get connected, they're happier, but
I've talked to folks up there, there's mixed feelings about it for sure. There are some that are very excited though, to be able to get out to the south without having to go to Mulberry. And less cut through traffic through their neighborhood, right, for some of those folks.
yes.
And they're gonna get coffee shops and stores and restaurants and things like that, that I think are sort of.
That grocery store, we're waiting for that.
Oh, I know. Yeah, well, to remind about that.
Absolutely. I am gonna quickly go over next steps for anybody who's watching, and for you as well, so that you can keep up with this project as it goes through review and you know what to expect. Make sure. Share. So where were we? I put in a lot of slides as usual. It's very thorough.
Wrong project. It's because Andy and I were coordinating on this,
Yeah.
that one
That's true,
today.
they get mixed up very easily.
Okay, so we've got our big, you are here sign. Where's my mouse? Right here. So we just finished our neighborhood meeting. I will get the video posted onto YouTube. So if you have somebody who wasn't able to make it tonight and they'd like to visit what we talked about, or you want to go back and see what our answers to your questions were, you can find it on YouTube. At least 10 days after this neighborhood meeting, the applicant can go ahead and submit. They did talk a little bit about their expected timeline earlier, and then we'll go through our review process. And then we will go to Planning and Zoning Commission when review is done. I don't know exactly how long that will take. It takes a different time for every project, but usually at least a few months. So things tend to move more slowly than people expect. So the best way to kind of keep up with that is to connect with me. We do have a website where you can find development projects. And if you can't find what you're looking for online, you can also just reach out to me here. This is my contact information. You can also submit a public comment anytime from now until this decision is made. You can send it to any of these places, or you can come to the hearing when we schedule that and speak, or join on Zoom and speak as well. So we have multiple ways for you to get involved and to keep up to date with this project. And hopefully you can get to know the project a little bit better and understand the potential impacts it may have on you. And then on our last slide here, I'll keep this up for a few minutes for people watching the video. This is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you watch the video and you have any questions or you'd like to submit a comment. And I think that's our meeting.
Anyone show up online?
No.
No. Okay. You're numero uno here.
It's, I just had to come and meet Ann, right?
Yeah.
That's, because she's the one that got me the package
Oh,
before
great.
Kai.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh. Yeah.
Oh,
So how's it looking, you guys building it out? Are people, is it happening? I mean, is this like 5 years now? What's the guess? And I'm not gonna hold you to it. We're not recording now, are we?
You're right.
think we are.
This thing's so long.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
So it seemed like for a year, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, you're right, we're starting to see dirt moving, you're starting to see things happening.
Yeah.
And so what does it take to build the site out?
Yeah, so, we're, as Andy kind of outlaid, we're definitely full speed ahead right now through all of our infrastructure, getting roadways prepped for paving, but have a lot of our utility work to get through, so hopefully through the rest of this summer, we get some great weather like we've had here recently, and honestly, there's nothing holding us back from trying to get pavement in this year. But there's definitely the possibility that, it could slip into next year from an ultimate perspective there, but our crews are working in kind of all avenues at the same time. So it's not like there's even necessarily we won't start on something in the back until we finish paving in the front, right? It's all moving concurrently.
Okay,
So from that perspective, it's definitely full speed ahead,
okay,
AK while the sun shines.
that's how you do it.
Yep.
And then outside of that, you've seen the development review project come for the storage place.
Mhm.
That was approved by P and Z last week, 2 weeks ago, somewhere recently.
oh, months ago, I think.
Is it that much?
Maybe a month ago.
Okay. So they're now working on their final engineering plans. That usually takes about 6 months.
Okay.
We'll see if it takes that long. This is fairly straightforward site with all the infrastructure, but famous last words.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys did the heavy lifting.
Yeah, fair enough. We're looking at the multifamily project. I don't know if you had seen that previously. That was down in the southwest corner of the site. You want to go to Kai's slide? It highlights it really nice. Thank you.
It's very clear.
It's, actually, that's a great.
Yeah, not that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually the site where the apartments are proposed.
Oh, so that's right at that I-25.
This is I-25's northbound on-ramp and then Prospect to the south. So that's getting ready to make its second preliminary submittal. That will also be here in the next week or maybe two. I need to get some input on amenity space. But yeah, it looks a little bit different, but not too different.
No,
So
built for
those are going now.
very similar.
Then that's kind of where it starts to get squishy from there. There's lots of ideas about what's gonna happen outside of that. All of those are gonna require some pretty good coordination with city staff on what's gonna meet land use code, what's also gonna meet the business needs to make it sustainable.
Itself.
Yeah, make it actually work. And I think that you'll see those other lots, and maybe I'm optimistic, but I think in the next 2 to 3 months, those ideas will kind of settle in, and then you'd see the start of, that 6 to 8
So
month
speaking
period.
of squishy, talk squishy for a second. So this up at the top, I think it's this one that's up here that's industrial, but
Yeah.
are gonna try and make it single family.
Single family and townhomes. Yeah.
Right, and that was a hope of having some affordable housing, right? Is that still assumed to be more affordable, right? Very similar to Fox Meadows
Mhm.
going into there, right? And so, we're definitely in favor of that, right? I mean, we need more homes, right? People want to come here, right?
I think that's an important thing to express to the city staff, as we're going through these processes, right?
Yeah, well, I understand you're within that. We're not supposed to have housing within that half a mile from I-25.
Mhm.
but Les Kaplan did it. And if Les Kaplan can do it, then
Yeah, I think it's a quarter
am I,
mile.
I'm
And
not
that
allowed to
limit,
say that.
that limit comes like to right in here. So,
Does it?
so
Okay.
this, you're exactly right. The idea in this, ideally from our team's perspective, is that it would be a single family around the perimeter adjacent to Foxgrove and then townhomes and more dense as it goes in. That doesn't meet the current industrial zoning.
It doesn't.
And so that's where we're gonna need to be kind of working with city staff, because those zones were laid out with a reason as well. And so that's the squishiness of how do we kind of get to a place that it works.
And what we really care about is that to the east of there, which is the urban estate,
Mhm.
that gonna stay. And that to me seems the hardest one to make profitable, right? Because it's urban estate.
I think it probably will be the hardest. I think also though, it will look more single family-ish, like Foxgrove, maybe just a touch less dense,
Okay.
because you see that potential park down there.
Mhm.
That's gonna be accounted for when you think about how many units there are.
Okay.
And so I want to say it's 12 units. It's not a lot of houses that would fit on there, but they'll probably all be moved up into that north quarter.
Okay, and then the park at the bottom.
Mhm.
Okay.
We
And
haven't
then
gotten
still the
over that one. but
retention
that's the-
pond up against the school's property.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay,
All subject to change, but that's
that's,
been the, particularly with those ones adjacent to the residential. It's tough to see, big industrial buildings right up against that, right? And
we would probably not be happy and would be coming to the city and saying, wait a minute. This was planned, urban estate.
Yep.
And we understood how the school gets around that. School gets to do whatever they want, right? We,
Kind of true.
yeah,
Kind of
that's
true,
that's
yeah,
the
I
big.
mean, yeah. And kind of true, but as you look at the plan now, we've been out there 33 years. And if this is the way it comes together, this is not a bad way for it to come together. We always knew this was gonna happen. You're right off I-25.
For it to be an
Right.
interchange, yeah.
And so if you get a nice, this retail building you're putting up is very nice, the apartments are very nice. Keep up the good work, and we're all,
Thank you.
right? I mean, that's gorgeous, right? What more could you ask for? I mean, I'm just one little person saying that, but truly, we should have all known that this was coming. And it was the interchange that held it up, so
Interchange and floodplain.
and I love your trails, because the one thing out here, we have our own resident deer population. We have our own resident coyotes. We have our own resident hawks and bald eagles. And keeping that open, we will continue to have. They can come eat your trees just like they eat ours. It's all good.
Surely.
So,
I've been amazed at how many bald eagles you see here anymore.
pardon?
I'm amazed how many bald eagles you see flying around here anymore.
Yeah,
All over different parts of town.
lots of rabbits to eat.
Oh my gosh, our neighborhood's sick with them right now.
Exactly.
Anyways, but
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I
it's
think,
good.
and I think adjacent to you, that urban estate, that's not gonna change, no matter who. I mean, that's zoned to that, that is what that is.
And the one question on the retention pond, is that just gonna be a ditch that the water can flow into if there's heavy rain? Or will there be water
It's a
in it?
permanent wet pond. So it will always have water in it.
It will,
Mhm.
and will that be circulating water?
It will.
Okay.
Yep.
Cause that's the mosquito problem,
Yep.
right?
Yep, it'll be circulating through all of those.
Okay,
Buttons.
Great questions.
No fountains.
Okay.
It's part of a non-potable watering system, so all of the open space will be watered using those ponds. I
okay,
think
cause you're
there's,
using the water rights to go with the property.
exactly, yep,
Okay.
which some of those are Kitchell shares. There's a couple of wells on site and
Right, and will you keep the wells as they are? Did you
where they
guys
are now,
see
yeah.
how the school tried to re-drill wells? They drilled and they drilled and they drilled. Ultimately, they went back to the farmer's well.
Did they really?
Yes, yes, they did.
Oh, I didn't know
They
that.
did. And so one of them, another of the farmer, there's two wells, I think, at the top of that,
Mhm.
that, a lot of water flowing there, so,
They had to move one with the highway widening, but,
Okay.
yeah.
on that side, okay.
Yeah.
The one over here, is probably still there. So yeah, we kind of laughed at the school because it's just like, I don't know how Rudolph's know, and I don't know how farmers know, like, how do they know where to drop a well, but they did, and it's the same with our wells, it keeps going, right?
I think they use a stick and it like bends.
That's right.
Yeah. I thought it was total
Yeah.
hook'em and
Yeah.
it's wild. Maybe I'm still getting duped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a sprinkler line the other weekend and I was like, I wonder if I need to get some of those rods.
Yeah,
Find out where
sure.
this.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Well, thanks, you guys, and it's good to meet you.
Yes, it's great to meet you as
And,
well.
and yes, I'll be still, it is so hard out on that site. You know, we get this link on here
Yeah,
and it just goes to this, and you're just like, yeah, where?
Yeah.
It's like this pit of information on
Yeah.
the city of Fort Collins site.
yes.
But
Do
then
you-
you send the package and all is good.
Think this will be one we have its own dedicated page for, or do you?
That's actually a good question. We've done that for all of our PUDs. This is fairly similar to that.
It's fairly substantial property.
I can think about
like
that.
Rudolph Farm would get its own page and then you'd have each individual project underneath of it.
To your point, to make it
That would be
easier.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely think about that for sure. We have had our control of our website taken away.
Oh, we did. Okay. We got Doge.
Hopefully that's the only thing you guys lose.
Yeah.
If you need exhibits or if
Yeah,
there's something that we can
definitely.
provide to like help, there's in our slide deck, there's a really good exhibit that shows the different lot numbers and
Yeah.
the roadway configuration. We could do that.
Okay.
Obviously you could take that, or if there's something similar, we could prepare it.
Okay,
Do you guys have a Metro District website that shows plans or no? Okay.
but you can always reach out to me if you have any questions.
Address.
But
Oh, well.
I should be able to get any question answered.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting, most of the people in our neighborhood are just, to them, the bigger issue is the school, right? That was the big
Yeah.
issue in our neighborhood. And besides traffic, most people don't necessarily care what's over here, except for as it impacts getting into town, right? And our city folks would probably tell us, so then when, on the other side of I-25, does that get widened all the way in to where it crosses the Pooter, right?
Yeah, kind of dips down into the Poudre River Valley. That will stay fairly consistent there, but there's gonna be, it's called Gateway at Prospect, which is on the northwest side.
Right, right.
And I don't know what stalled that project for so long, but that will be you may know.
Floodplains and environmental.
Okay, floodplain environmental, and a little bit of seed out of it too.
Maybe a little bit, but yeah, mostly.
Yeah, so once and if that ever develops, that will
And
be
that gets
built
widened.
to its ultimate.
Now, west of there is still up in the air though, right? As it goes down through the floodplain and whether or not that would get widened to 4 as you go past the Summit View signal.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, maybe eventually it will.
It's totally limited access. It flows traffic fairly well. I think it's everything else.
Now, wait a
behind it.
minute. Have you tried to go from Timberline, I-25 at about between 4 and 5 o'clock?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Sure. It goes from 2 to 1 lanes.
yeah.
Sure.
Goes
I'm
down,
just
yeah.
saying the other.
Oh, going
direction.
in Duxbury,
Yeah,
except in the morning, it goes fairly fast. Now that they've timed those lights.
Yeah.
That used to be a mess, but now it goes fairly fast in, but coming out is challenging.
Yep, I would agree. Yeah, so they may do some improvements there, but I'm not sure where it's at on their capital improvement project or
Probably,
if it's in any kind of near
Yeah.
term plan.
yeah, so I have to say, even though the school did as the school
That's-
pleased,
yeah.
yes. It hasn't been probably as bad as most people thought. It was probably the most annoying thing to the neighborhood is when they do the baseball games down at that end. They have this big horn they blow, right? And that just, it's like, really, do you really have to blow that horn? We don't even hear inside the stadium. The only time we will hear is like today, there was a track meet when they shoot the starting gun. But otherwise, we do not hear. Oh, sometimes we hear the music, right? You know how they start the music.
Yeah.
But when we're in the house, we don't hear it. We only hear it, and they play pretty good, pretty good soundtrack.
Pretty good
so,
soundtrack, yeah.
Yeah, it's very upbeat music and,
The stadium lights, is that?
you know,
Pretty good.
probably the strangest thing that we haven't figured out, on any given night, they'll have the lights on to the west of the stadium, and then some nights the gym is completely lit up.
Mhm.
Other nights the lights are off and the parking lots are on. And I think we're just used to,
Yeah,
the stadium lights are not bad at all.
okay.
Those aren't,
They got like special,
We spent a lot of
Easy to
time
aim,
on those lights.
right? Do you remember? I can't remember what the brand is on them now.
Musco.
Musco, yeah.
yeah, given that that's a big stadium, it's a district stadium, the
Yeah.
lights are not bad.
Okay,
Probably the parking lot lights and those practice lights on the other side are a little bit,
more impactful.
and the people down at the other end with the baseball and the softball. And there's that practice field on the other side of the school.
Yeah.
Those lights are worse than the stadium lights.
Okay, yeah, we did spend a lot of time in the stadium. We kind of, we
That's a
didn't,
deal.
I don't know if they showed those other lights on the lighting plan for the baseball fields, but
Or the practice field
yeah,
on
I
the other
don't think they
side.
showed the lighting.
I want to say, yeah, that they even only pre-wired it,
Yeah.
in the stuff that we were showing. I don't know.
So darn, they got biased.
They might have, yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
coming and
it's
giving me
been-
a
Yeah,
spiel.
who's this team here?
My name's Vinny with the developer, Pacific North.
Okay,
Then Bryce Willoughby with engineering.
okay,
Andy Reese also with the engineering and planning on it.
okay. Good to meet you guys.
Nice.
You know, the Whites, they owned that property for so many years. We were like this.
Did you get to know Rick and Dave?
Oh,
pretty well?
yes, loved them,
They're
loved them.
fantastic.
They
Rick
are,
called me a couple weeks ago and
Yeah.
I missed his call, got his voicemail, but
we went through a lot with, you know, they went through a lot. But I would get a kick out, they'd call me, they'd say, hey, what's up? Can you drive over and see what's going on? And it was very mutual. And I would say, hey, you know, it's getting a little weedy out there. Could you call Chris to come in and mow?
Hmm.
And we felt like family, and then sold it,
Yeah.
you know?
well, it's amazing how long they held it for.
Yeah,
They
they
held
held on
it
to
a
it.
long time.
15
A
or
long
something
time.
like that.
But, you know, their hearts are so in the right place.
Mhm.
I hope you guys' hearts are as much in the right place as the Whites. They were, yeah, you know, from a development standpoint, you couldn't have asked for more upstanding people, right? They said something, they meant it, right? Their word was just gold.
Just good people,
Yes,
like,
yes,
just genuinely good.
yes. And I'll tell you, I think it was tough when we lost a son. That was the most heartbreaking thing for all of us, right? As every parent, you're just, yeah, and you just think, how can something so awful happen to such good people? But it's good, you know, it's good. We knew this was coming, and we just hoped that they would sell to the right people.
Mm.
And it looks like they did, so they'll keep doing what they do.
What was your name, man?
I'm Kathy.
Kathy?
Schmidtke. You can call me too, you know, when they keep bringing the black fabric down, you know, I just feel so bad for those guys. They come every couple weeks and they put it back up and they put it back up, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you know, I'm just not sure you shouldn't leave it down, because and you know, it's not just the kids either. There's a group of adults that come through there that,
Shame on them.
well,
Yes, there's one of them.
Yeah.
what's that?
I think I know one of the women that's probably using that Fox Grove neighborhood.
Okay, well, there's a runner that comes through there and he doesn't like to jump it.
Mm.
And so he has been probably a little bit worse than the kids. The kids are just kids,
I
right?
think you could pull the construction fence off
Like-
of it and create a little.
I'm like, do we need to just embrace the reality? Yeah.
Yeah. And saving yourself time and money.
You might, you know, because it's until they have a better path, that's gonna be it. Now, and I did work with the school. They also were very bad about, you'll notice all along there's a trash trail. And I said, you know, you guys, that's just not good neighbors. End of the semester, let's clean up. And they've come out and cleaned up, because their trash becomes your trash and my trash. And, but yeah, some of the kids are just, and the runners and the bikes and you know, just,
Different than 30 years ago.
sure is, but it's
Yeah.
all good.
Yep.
All good. And you know, it'll be interesting when you guys get to that point. You know, I guess I would ask also, you know, I'm assuming water is gonna come in from the south and the north. Because there is a utility easement on both of our properties, right? And when Elko was helping with the school, they came down to our property line and said, we do not have access below this. So we granted them, what I want to say, access to take all their hoses from the hydrant that they put in at the corner of our property, because that's all the further they had access to. So we assumed that water could either come off that hydrant or south or north, just like the school did, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the Elko water, potable water?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna be coming in from Prospect as well as, the two connections into Fox Grove. We've seen that there was a utility easement along there,
yes,
and you're talking about a hydrant that's like right in
right
this
there.
area?
But that's where they had to stop, because they said, we do not have authority to go any further south than that hydrant.
And we stopped, we didn't try to connect that. The mains in the roadways is a much, much better situation, so you
Okay.
probably will not see anything with that. The hydrant's still there though,
Mhm. Oh,
and the water
absolutely.
line comes from the north.
Yep, yep, yep.
We'll wanna keep that in mind as we're looking at the single family. along there.
You will, because if you think from a fire access,
We might wanna just take it out or move it entirely or.
right?
Yeah.
And Elko was great. I mean, at that point, we had horses and it was big equipment coming in and they were so good. They're like, will this bother your horses? And we're like, you know, thanks for asking, but no, they don't care. So, yeah, so it could stay out, but because of that, when they said they weren't gonna be coming south, we planted in the utility easement.
Hmm.
And so therefore, in some ways, we're not sure we care how much happens, because ultimately, landscape always hides everything, right? Trees get big enough and then they just do, right? And so we've planted along that side. And even now, we've said that we sat there and we could see that our junipers are up high enough that they're blocking I-25. That's only this little strand, but so we're not as concerned, but I do think at some point you'll say, well, will that be fenced? But what will be the barrier between the park and the urban estate and us, right? And I don't think many people will go through the junipers because they're so awful. But I mean, you know, and they're gonna be very thick by the time we get to that point. But that might be the only thing that you would ask is, well, you know, are there berms there? Is there a fence there? How do you know, stop? Because there's not good access to come out of there and go east to Kitchell Way, right? You don't want people cutting, going that way or getting to the park. So, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see too, that park timing. That's not, we're gonna give the land for that, but to my knowledge, that programming won't be done as a part of our project. That may change as we go further into this, but.
Yeah, essentially how it works typically with parks is that you reserve the land, the city pays you for it, and then they build it. Like with the new sales tax that they have,
That'll speed things up.
those things are probably gonna start coming online much quicker than they historically have. But yeah. So you're saying you guys wouldn't want a connection to a public park?
You know, that's an interesting, my husband and I have talked about that, because if we have access to it, then on the other side, it means everybody has access to us. And there's not, like I say, there's not good originally, I think Kitchell Way could have gone through,
Mhm.
but it didn't. And so now what would happen is that they would just have to cut across our property, either our property or Skillman's property, and that's just not.
Yeah,
Now, what I also somewhat think is the section that the school owns, they're saying, oh, they want to put an admin building there, right?
in the UE spot or in the I?
Isn't UE?
Right
Up
there,
there.
right there.
Okay,
And the reality is, given the problems that they had with their last bond issue, I think that admin's I'm gonna be dead before that admin building
Yeah.
is there. I mean, do you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
just like not gonna happen anytime soon, which that then leaves that section open, right? It's not fenced, it's just there. And that may be more of an issue for all of us, because then you've got this open piece of property that's just not managed, it's not mowed, it's not supervised, if you will, right?
And the district doesn't provide maintenance for it right now. Yeah.
You know, they come out. I would say the answer to that, if I called the city.
Yeah.
And said, you should see the noxious weeds on here, it's mostly thistle.
Mhm.
So I think, no, they don't manage it very
Okay.
well. And so about once a year, I think they come out and cut it,
Okay,
but it's not managed. I will tell you what, the Whites and the Snores managed it better than,
yeah,
they were very good about managing the weeds and the mowing and, you know, keeping it under control. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that piece of property as this builds out.
yeah, and that will be the town of Timoth now, so,
Really?
yeah, we disconnected it. No longer part of the city,
Okay, so just that little piece was given
the
to,
entire campus.
The whole school site.
Yeah.
sure, but we're still Laramie County
Yep,
and you guys are City of Fort Collins.
yeah, so we redrew, or we haven't redrawn our growth management area, but basically we'll be redrawing the GMA to kind of follow the darker areas of this site, so,
Yeah.
the
little, here.
Yeah.
And then up and through there, and this will all be Tim.
and
Okay,
Timoth should have annexed it, right, so it should be in there.
Okay.
Or the certain thing.
Yeah, yeah.
okay. But then that's where they stop. We're county, and didn't you guys annex
Clydesdale.
Clydesdale,
Clydesdale?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so we're just gonna be this little outlier, but I'll tell you what, anybody that would give us high-speed internet,
yeah,
it's gonna annex us,
Yeah.
do it to us.
Yeah, both Timoth and Fort Collins would be viable for you, huh? Because on the north side is Fort Collins and on the south it's Timoth.
And, you know, it would not be good for us to get annexed either way unless we were grandfathered in, because we're septic, we have no streetlights, we have no sidewalks, we're just very county. I mean, that's how it was done. And the only thing we have in our favor is we do have what's that thing that we put money into to pave our street? So we do pay for our street, but beyond that, it would be hard for us to come up to a city standard. You know what? I wouldn't mind, like I said, if I could get high-speed internet. We talked with, you know, who was the guy on the school that,
Brendan
yes,
Willits,
Brendan.
yeah,
Yeah, so I can say this here, he was kind of a little bit of a jerk about where it landed on our property.
yeah,
And then as they put the fence down there, when they got to ours, I'm like, you guys didn't really look at this because it's not a straight line from one end to the other. And so they wanted to put the fence onto our property, and I said, no. And the guy that was doing it was like, you know, you've got all this land and you won't give us 4 inches onto your property. I said, no, I asked Brendan for 20 feet and he wouldn't give me that.
Hmm.
So no, you do not get to put your fence on my property.
yeah,
And, you know, but
yeah.
that was probably a little bit grouchy.
Ah.
It was grouchy, but you know, I have to say, okay, now I'm gonna tell you this is rare. Like I said, that utility easement, we weren't gonna put anything in there. Well, then we put these junipers in here, and I'll tell you what happens out there. When the storms come from the north, they're gonna dump all that snow on their street, and they're gonna wish that they'd have given me those damn 20 feet.
Yeah,
Because for the forever of that school, they're gonna be clearing that snow
yeah,
all day long. So, you know, what can you say? It's all good. It's all good. But it is all good, you guys. We'll let you get home.
no,
Yeah.
thank you for going,
Yeah.
and making it interesting.
This is good just to know, like, what's going on and what's squishy
Yeah.
Yeah,
and we're gonna keep getting your letters and I'm gonna try to understand what's going on.
well, always give me a call. I don't know what happened.
This one I loved. This one's good.
Good. I'm glad
This
that was
one-
helpful.
This map just makes
Not
no
helpful.
sense anymore.
Hmm.
And when you try to put this, yeah,
That's the most recent letter we sent out.
Yeah, this is the most recent for this one. I'm like, I just could not figure out where that's at with this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the county parcel map should be updated now with the Rudolph Farm being recorded, so.
Yeah, it
That
still
should be much
shows
better.
the frontage road for some,
yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah, that's been gone for like
Forever.
forever. So, but it's all good. We get it.
Yeah.
Welcome to our part of the neighborhood. Jen. Love it. You just got it out there.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
You guys, and you know what? Ty has my email and my phone number.
Oh, yeah.